What keeps you up at night? Does anything keep you up at night? Maybe nothing, bothers you. Maybe you just sleep like a baby. I know, I'm in my 50s and I've got a few things that keep me up at night. So, welcome. My name's Bill. This is Coffee at the Crossroads. And I'm going to talk about a few of the things that keep me up at night. So if you're new here, thanks for joining me. If you're a returning viewer, thanks so much. Let's, as I said, I want to talk about some of the things that that give me some sleepless nights and some of the things that weigh on my mind now that I'm in my 50s. Honestly, I want to share because I feel like maybe there's people out there like me that have things that keep them up at night. And I also want to share because, sometimes just sharing lightens the load. So if you feel like, you can relate to some of these things, that's great. If you feel like you have different things, I'd love to hear in the comments. We can kind of all lighten each other, lighten the load by sharing, right? So that's sort of where I'm at. So I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos. They tend to be kind of, 5 things you can do to do this, or, ways to stay healthy, or, talk to strangers or whatever. This is a little different, this one. I hope it's not too much of a downer because it's like, I don't have a lot of answers when it comes to this, but it's more like, I kind of getting the load off, a little bit. So I'm going to try something different here. I will say that the plan is to hopefully wrap it up with some encouraging, or at least a way forward, or some encouraging thoughts at the end. Let's jump in. So what keeps me up at night? Well, it's really 4 things. I'll go through and kind of break them down. But those 4 things are retirement. I'm 57, and I'm thinking about retirement. My physical health, my mental health, and the future for my kids. The future of the world. So that's a big one. I know. Wow, right? Those are the things that kind of give me some restless nights. So anyway, let's jump into it. Retirement. The first thing, retirement. I don't have a bunch of answers. Obviously, when it comes to retirement, it's different for everybody, and what it looks like is different for everybody, and that's, I think, part of what kind of keeps me up at night, to be honest, is what is my retirement going to look like? What am I going to do? Can I afford it? All that kind of stuff. My wife and I we try to be financially responsible and everything, and we are planning for retirement, but there's always those little, niggling doubts in the back of your mind, right? Like, did I save enough? What if I did this? Should I splurge on this? And part of what sort of causes me some sort of restlessness as well is that obviously retirement's huge, and funding it and financing it and all that stuff, and what I'm going to do is important, but I also want to live my life in between, right? And so it's finding that balance, do we put some money away, or do we go on that trip, when it's really easy to just spend it all, and it's also really, it's kind of an easy knee-jerk thing to kind of squirrel it all away, and finding a way to find that balance. And so, that's what kind of, some sleepless nights going, oh, should we do this? Should we do that? I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but, 50, 57, I can see retirement from where I'm standing. So, it's certainly something that weighs on my mind. And the next thing is, physical health, obviously, right? Like we're, like I said, I'm 57, I'm in pretty good shape, but, there's always those kind of niggling things in the back of your mind, you know, and that's another one that kind of you know, gives me some sleepless nights. You know, I don't know if you're like me, but you know, you know, every time there's a nagging little injury, or you know, there's something going on, you're like, oh, is this a sign that I'm falling apart? You know, so you know, physical health is something that, again, and I try to eat right and I try to do those things, but you know, it's a concern, and it's not just a concern for myself, but also for my wife. And you know, like we plan to have, you know, an active retirement and you know, grow old together and all that stuff. And it's sort of like, you know, she's got aches and pains, and oh, you know, her knees are bad, and I've got my back bothers me sometimes and all that stuff. And it's like, you know, again, back to the retirement thing, you know, am I gonna, you know, I want to retire early enough that I can still be physically active and enjoy myself, and you know, we can enjoy time together, and we can travel and do some of those things, you know. So yeah, and then that leads to the next thing is mental health. And I think for people my age, for people our age, you know, I hope you can relate to this. Mental health isn't something we talk about much, right? Like we're sort of, you know, the Gen Xers who kind of were like, just kind of get on with it. You know, some of the younger Gen Xers maybe were a little bit more in tune with mental health. But you know, like I find myself being more anxious, you know, now. I'm not too much of a worrier. I mean, obviously, you know, this whole segment is about me, you know, having some sleepless nights. So, you know, I do have a lot going on in my head. But I do find, and maybe I'm just more in tune to it now, but I find that I'm, you know, things make me more anxious now than they maybe did before. And so that's something that, you know, that I'm kind of in tune to. I want to, you know, I wouldn't say that mental health necessarily kind of keeps me awake at night, but it is a thing, you know, where you know, I want to be mindful of you know, reducing my stress and making sure that I'm getting, you know, proper rest and that stuff, and trying to I don't know how you say it, but kind of, you know, sort of segment those things I can control and things I can't, and, you know, and breathing through it and all that stuff, you know what I mean? So, but it is one that, again, you know, as you get older, you just kind of, you start paying attention to these things. You know, when you're younger, maybe it's just like, don't worry about it, boom, and you go through and you do whatever and you kind of push through. And I just find that, you know, mental health is maybe a thing that I'm just getting more in tune with, and it's like I say, it's not something that, you know, people my age, you know, talk a lot about. So that's something that's you know, it's always kind of weighing on my mind, pardon the pun. And yeah, and then finally, you know, the last thing is this, and I mean, yeah, I say the last thing, like I've only got 4 things that keep me awake at night. But no, I mean, I think that these are the sort of the big 4. The last one is you know, the future for my kids. You know, there's you know, and I think probably every generation has this, because there's always stuff going on, right? And there's always, you know, upheaval and changes in technology and changes in, you know, political systems, and, you know, there's conflicts here and conflicts there, and there's famine, and there's all that stuff that's going on. But right now for me, you know, so many changes in so many industries with, you know, the loss of jobs and AI and, you know, technology taking over and all that kind of stuff, and political upheaval. And there's wars around the world and all that stuff. And we can see that, you know, people not being very nice to other people, and that, you know, that can get me down for sure. And again, back to that mental health thing, you know, you got to sort of segment those things that you can control and those things that you can't. But I think it's only natural that you worry about it. And as you get older, and, you know, my kids are, you know, they're grown and they're getting into their own careers and stuff. And, there's just some stuff that just weighs on my mind, So I think that's only natural. And I guess it's a bit interesting because this stuff was going on. There was upheaval and there was technological change, and there was all this stuff when I was 20 or 25, and I had my worries and my concerns and my anxieties about this and that, and like I think everybody does. But I guess, and it's back to that things you can control. When you're 25, you go, look, I'll figure it out. I got my life in front of me, right? And when you're 57, you're going, I'm worried about this for other people, right? And that kind of, that feels like it's less in your control, and so that's something I worry about. Are my kids going to get good jobs, and are they going to be happy, and how's their mental health going to be? This is a generation that lived through the whole COVID thing and all that stuff, and they're that was really in their formative years and stuff. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that kind of makes me anxious, I guess, is the best way of putting it. But yeah, so that's I guess in a nutshell, those are the four things. I think about my retirement, I think about my physical health, and I think about my mental health, and I think about the future for my kids and what that's going to look like. But I'd love to hear what you think. As varied as the world is and as varied as people are, I'm sure everybody has different things that they're worrying about. I think we probably all worry about finances to some extent now, whether that's finances for retirement or finances for something else or whatever it is. But yeah, I'd love to hear if you've got something and you want to kind of offload. I'd love to hear. Leave a comment. Now. I don't want this to be a downer. I don't want this to end as a downer, right? So, I want people to come, my YouTube channel is about motivation and inspiration. And so, I'm hoping I have, something that is inspiring, at least for me personally. I hope that, my story, hopefully I can share it. And that is that, I'm hoping that YouTube is a bridge for some of these things. When I talk about retirement, there's, not on the financial side necessarily with YouTube, but what am I going to do, and what is my retirement going to look like? And I really plan for YouTube to be a part of that. Obviously my wife and I want to travel and there's other things that we have hobbies and we have things that we want to do, but I found that YouTube has been a really great creative outlet for me, and so I'm hoping that's one not less thing off my mind, but I hope that starting YouTube and doing this and building it and building a community, that will be something that I can carry forward into my retirement, that I can enjoy, and it'll be a creative outlet and all that stuff. I don't think that YouTube necessarily is going to help with my physical health. Sitting here, talking to a camera isn't necessarily the most active thing, but I do think having something to look forward to and having a reason to kind of to stay physically healthy, that YouTube can provide that. Like it's like, hey, I want to do this thing. I plan to be pretty active in my retirement and in the coming years. So physical health is something that hopefully takes care of itself. And on the mental health side, I've found it's odd to say, it really is, but this is really therapeutic. It's really fun. Like I find myself looking forward to what am I going to shoot next and what am I going to do? And it feels like as a creative outlet and as it's got my my synapses kind of firing. And I feel like doing YouTube has been really enjoyable, and so that's so far, and so I think it's been good for my mental health as well. So yeah, now, YouTube in the future for my kids, I don't know that that YouTube's going to necessarily answer that, but I do see, there was one important thing that I do think about YouTube. Yeah, and it's about legacy. It is about the future, and doing YouTube, however long I do it, I plan to continue on with it, and I plan to remain, active and committed to being consistent and all that stuff. But sharing some of these things, this is something that will be a bit of a legacy, and it's something that I actually plan to do a video on in the future, is about legacy and what that means. But the idea was put in my mind by Rob the Maritimer. I don't know if you guys have seen him. If you haven't, check him out. He's fantastic. But he talked about that's a one reason. Everybody gets into YouTube for different reasons. Some people want to make some money, and some people want to do it for fun, and some people want to build a community, like myself, and some there's just sort of different reasons why. But one of the things he mentioned, and I hadn't thought of it this way before, but he said some people do it to leave a legacy, and it's brilliant, right? Like you're sort of immortalizing your thoughts and your ideas and inspirations and stories and all those things, for your, I don't know, maybe future generations is going a little far, but certainly for your kids and maybe your grandkids and whatever, and they can look back and go, oh, that's my granddad, and even just sharing some of those stories that that you've had, and so that's an element of projecting into the future for my kids, that it gives me some comfort anyway. Who knows what the world's going to look like in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, but doing this, I feel like it's leaving an element of a legacy anyway. So yeah, that's it. That's my uplifting, inspirational. I don't think it's that inspirational, but yeah, that's my my thoughts for the day is and I'd love to hear from you what keeps you up at night, and and share, and by sharing, hopefully you feel better, and it'll make me feel better if I know I'm being heard and stuff. So yeah, so please leave a comment. And maybe you too will start a YouTube channel, and it'll help you kind of allay some of the fears that might go on in your head at night. But yeah, until then, I'm Bill. This is Coffee at the Crossroads. If you like what you see, hit the little subscribe button, please. And there's some other videos that should be somewhere around here. And join me again. I'd love to see you. Cheers.